Hello, wonderful students. Welcome to lesson 21 of the Changing Economic World topic. As you know, in this series of lessons we are exploring our development case study. We're looking at how an NEE, a newly emerging economy, Nigeria, is developing, the challenges that it faces, and what it is doing to overcome them. In this lesson we will explore how industry, specifically manufacturing, can help countries to develop, and I will show you what Nigeria is doing to grow its industry so that it develops faster. Please take a moment to write the date, title and learning objective and have a pen and paper ready to learn. As we always do, we need to recall what we have learned previously, so please write 1 to 10, attempt the questions from memory, and then mark your answers. Go for it. Question 1. What is the climate zone in the central region of Nigeria? It is savanna grasslands. 2. What is the capital city of Nigeria? Abuja. 3. What city in northeast Nigeria is poorer and more commonly exposed to violence? It's Maiduguri. 4. When did Nigeria achieve independence from the UK? In 1960. 5. What is the main ethnic group around Lagos? It's the Yoruba. 6. What type of aid is most vulnerable to government corruption? Typically, it's bilateral aid between two governments. 7. What percent of Jamaica's GDP comes from tourism? It's about 30%. 8. What affects Jamaica between August and October every year that reduces tourism? Hurricanes or tropical storms. 9. What measure of development combines literacy rate, life expectancy, and GDP per capita? It is the Human Development Index, or HDI. And 10. What is the main cause of death in HICs? Lifestyle diseases or chronic diseases? Non-communicable, non-infectious diseases. Please give yourselves a mark out of 10. If you got above 8, fantastic. If you got below, please write the questions you got wrong and write the answers and test yourselves on them repeatedly until you remember them. Excellent. To introduce this topic of industry and why it's so important for a country's development, I'm going to show you 2 graphs called tree maps. And these tree maps show what countries export to other countries in the world through international trade. The tree map on the left will be of the USA and the tree map on the right will be of Nigeria. Please answer the questions that go with these tree maps. Go for it. So number 1, what is Nigeria's main export? Nigeria's main export is this brown region here, crude petroleum, oil. And part of oil is gas. And then a small amount of it is refined petroleum. Crude petroleum is what you get when you dig up oil out of the ground. It is the raw material, the natural resource. And gas also comes up out of the ground as well with it, natural gas, methane. To turn crude petroleum into refined petroleum, you need to manufacture it. You need to go through several processes to be able to create refined petroleum, which is what you can use in cars or planes or trains or ships. Only then can crude petroleum be used. Nigeria only exports a small amount of refined petroleum. It exports mostly crude petroleum. How can you tell that the USA is a HIC? Well, HICs export a very large range of different products. The USA's, as you can see here, tree map suggests that it exports a large range. Second reason you can tell the USA is an HIC is because it exports lots of manufactured products that require lots of skills and highly educated people. Circuits in computers, solar power, vehicles, medicines, medical technology, other technologies, only a small amount of oils, lots of medical equipment and chemicals. These are all typical exports of a HIC because they are manufactured goods. 3. Which country's economy would be more badly affected if the price of oil decreased, and why? Well, in the previous lesson we learned that if you sell only one product, if a country only exports one product, for example crude oil, and the price of that product decreases because demand falls, people want less of it, then the income of that country is affected very badly because it only has one real source of income. Whereas If the price of oil decreased and it affected the US, because the US sells so many different types of products and only just over 5% of its products come from oil, its economy would be much less badly affected because it would still be making lots of money from these other products. So as a result, the answer to number 3 is Nigeria, because it depends on oil, whereas the USA has a diversified economy. It exports many different types of products. Excellent. Based on these two tree maps, you should be able to see and work out already why industrialization is so important for development. It gives people jobs, many different types of jobs, and it prevents the country from being vulnerable to price volatility, where it goes up and down really fast, which means the country can plan ahead and can invest in development, and it has no risk of losing its income suddenly. Okay, so the first big question we need to understand is Nigeria's economy industrializing, and how has it changed over time? Please write this subtitle and get ready to learn. If we go back 30 years, let's look at what Nigeria's economy looked like then. This is a pie chart of Nigeria's employment structure, so the jobs that people do, in 1991. You may be able to work out already, but this structure is typical of a LIC. The large sector is in the primary sector, farming and mining. Nigeria has more farmers and produces more food than any other African country. It also has lots of miners and people working extracting oil. In 1991, its manufacturing sector was actually quite large, manufacturing cars and other products. And the tertiary sector was fairly small. Not that many people worked in services. Not that many people worked as shopkeepers or with computers. What does Nigeria's economy look like now? How has it changed? Well, here we go. This is Nigeria's employment structure in 2019. As you can see, the primary sector has shrunk quite considerably. The secondary sector, however, has also shrunk. The tertiary sector, by contrast, has grown very significantly. There are some reasons why this has happened. The first one is rural to urban migration. People have moved to cities in search of better jobs. Better jobs in cities have become available in the tertiary sector because computers have arrived in Nigeria. Computers provide access to a whole range of service jobs. For example, as accountants and lawyers and bankers and doctors, most jobs today require computers and rely on them. And since computers have arrived in Nigeria, many more people have been able to work in the tertiary sector. Also, as incomes have risen in Nigeria because of development projects and because of the revenues from oil over time, more people are buying manufactured goods because they have higher incomes. As a result, the retail sector, which is in the service sector, has grown significantly in Nigeria. People work as shopkeepers because the consumers, the average person, can buy more, and so shops grow. Retail is in the tertiary sector. Nigeria's employment structure has become what we call a more balanced economy. The three pieces of the pie chart are more similar in size, with the exception of manufacturing. However, for several reasons, Nigeria's economy has not changed more into that typical of a NEE. The manufacturing sector is smaller than other NEEs, for example Brazil, and the primary sector is larger. Let me show you why. The first reason is dependence on oil. Because Nigeria's government gets so much of its revenue, about 70%, from oil, it does not need to tax the people so much. And since it doesn't need to tax people for its revenues, it doesn't need to invest in them as much to allow them to generate higher incomes, which means more taxes. Also, because it gets so much revenue from oil, it doesn't need to invest in manufacturing as much to gain those revenues. So it hasn't put as much money into infrastructure and into factories and into companies that would bring about greater manufacturing. As a result of Nigeria's dependence on oil, manufacturing has stayed smaller than it should be. Additionally, because Nigeria exports so much oil, investment in the country has focused on the oil industry. Most of the investing companies in Nigeria are oil companies, not companies in manufacturing. As a result, the manufacturing sector is smaller than it would otherwise be because of oil. Second reason, corruption. Quite a significant amount of the government budget, which is the amount of money the government has to spend on things, is stolen by politicians in the Nigerian government. This is called corruption. There are many ways that corruption happens, but one of the ways is that when the country exports its oil, that money is distributed amongst the politicians and amongst the different departments of the government. And some of that money is lost. It disappears and no one knows where it goes. It is estimated that 20% of the revenues from oil disappear this way into the pockets and the bank accounts of politicians, and that is a classic example of corruption. And since so much money is lost through corruption and not spent on development and not spent on investment in manufacturing, the orange secondary sector in Nigeria is not as big as it would otherwise be. Finally, as a result of corruption and as a result of dependence on oil, the manufacturing sector, the secondary sector in Nigeria, is not as big as it could be. In fact, it has shrunk compared to what it was. So the big question is this. If Nigeria has lacked investment in manufacturing, how is that holding it back? And to put a positive spin on that question, how could investment in manufacturing in Nigeria help the country to develop faster and improve quality of life? Let me show you with two examples of car companies that have invested in Nigeria. So, here are two car companies that have set up factories in Nigeria to produce those cars. Let me show you how it has helped Nigeria to develop and how it could further help it develop. Please write this subtitle. This is a new Kia factory. Kia is a South Korean car company. And this is a new Volkswagen factory, a German car company, one of the biggest car companies in the world, selling more cars than almost any company in the world. These two car companies have invested in Nigeria because two reasons. First one, labor costs are lower. They have to pay the workers less to produce their goods, which means the companies make more profit. Secondly, the increasing income of people in Nigeria means that there is a market for these products. The car companies, Kia and Volkswagen, can sell these products to Nigerian people because increasingly the people can afford them. As a result of the investment of these two manufacturing companies in Nigeria, both of these factories are in Lagos, the biggest city, there are two principal benefits that could continue to grow for Nigeria. First one is this. These are typical appliances that one might have in a home. In LICs, people have very few appliances because they cannot afford them. Also, there are very few appliances because the companies that produce these appliances do not invest or export products to these countries, these LICs, because they think that the people cannot afford them, so they won't make a profit. Because of manufacturing in Nigeria, people are earning a higher income than they would if they were working in the primary sector. That's why they move to cities, because they know they'll make a higher income. With that higher income, they can increasingly afford these manufactured products. This is called a consumer economy, where people can spend money on things that they don't need but would help to improve their lives and make their lives easier. This consumer economy leads to the multiplier effect. Because people make more money, more companies set up in Nigeria, which means yet more jobs for people working in manufacturing and selling of these products. Salesmen, accountants, engineers who fix these products, repairmen and women, electricians who repair these products, all of these new jobs are created because of the arrival of these manufactured products, which all stems from the fact that people have a higher income and therefore demand for these manufactured products increases. That is the multiplier effect, and it's happening in Nigeria, and manufacturing makes it happen. Second benefit of the arrival of these two companies and the reason why Nigeria wanted them so much. When people have higher incomes, they pay higher taxes. Also, when companies invest in a country, they pay taxes as well. The corporate tax rate in Nigeria, which means the amount of taxes that companies have to pay, is 30%. So whatever a company makes in Nigeria, whatever amount of money it makes, it must pay 30% in taxes to the government. This increases the revenues that the government has to invest in development. Because the people who are making more money are also paying taxes, this increases the investment that the government puts into its people, because now it makes a significant amount of its revenues from the people's taxes, which means it has a reason to invest more in them so its tax revenues can increase. As a result of increased taxes, the government can spend more money on development. And this is happening right now in Nigeria. The people that work in these factories are getting houses, they're increasing the number of appliances in their homes, and taxation is increasing. Lagos pays more money in tax overall than any other area of Nigeria, partly because it has the most manufacturing. So for these two reasons, manufacturing can help Nigeria to develop. Let's assess your understanding. Please write 1 to 18, put the words in the gaps, and then mark your answers after. Go for it. Number 1, the percent of people employed in different sectors in a country is called a country's employment structure. In 1991, Nigeria had a structure like a typical LIC. The primary sector was largest, with about 64%. However, the manufacturing sector was also quite large. Between 1991 and 2019, both the primary and the secondary sectors have decreased in size. The tertiary sector has increased dramatically in size. This is partly due to rural to urban migration, but also due to the increase in access to computers and communication technology, like phones. However, most people in Nigeria today are still employed in the primary sector as low-paid farmers. The exploitation of oil in Nigeria reduced its need for taxes from people and reduced investment in manufacturing. Another effect of oil was government corruption, which led to funds that were intended for manufacturing investment to be stolen. The result is that today, manufacturing is smaller than it should be due to a lack of government investment at about 13%. Also, since people's incomes are still relatively low, foreign companies have not invested as much in manufacturing. Kia and Volkswagen have recently both set up factories in Lagos. This will give people access to higher paid jobs, which could have two positive effects. First, higher incomes equals more spending, leading to a multiplier effect, as other manufacturing companies seek to profit from demand for products like appliances. Also, higher incomes mean more taxes for the government, which can be invested in development projects. Give yourselves a mark out of 18. And if you didn't do particularly well in this, then watch the explanations again. If you did really well, excellent, you've understood it. Now time to really embed the learning by applying it to some questions. Please answer the questions from memory, using your own understanding, and then mark your answers and add and correct in green. Go for it. Describe the pattern of Nigerian employment in 2019. So go back to the pie chart and describe the pattern. You should have put that the primary sector is the largest, the tertiary sector is the second largest, and manufacturing is the smallest. And for the second mark, you should have put a specific percent for each of those. Suggest 2 possible reasons why the tertiary sector increased between 1991 and 2019 using these keywords. Rural to urban migration, modern technology, companies and HICs outsourcing. Outsourcing means putting some of the jobs in another country. The rise in average incomes in Nigeria. More shopping. Using an example of NEE, explain how manufacturing can promote economic development. This is a typical and very common and difficult exam question that comes up. Make sure you use all these keywords to answer it. Here are some points you might have put. Manufacturing leads to rising average incomes, which means people have more money to spend on manufactured products. And so there is an increase in the number of manufacturing companies and jobs related to them to meet that demand. 3 marks. You could have also said Manufacturing means higher incomes, which means higher taxes. Finally, you could have said that manufacturing leads to economic diversification, more sources of income, which means the country depends less on revenues from oil, so if the price of oil falls, the country's economy is less badly affected. Please give yourselves a mark and add in green any corrections. Thank you so much for joining me in this lesson. Time to review. Please write 2 questions from memory, answer them, and then test yourselves in a week. Well done today. Please join me for the next lesson.